The Duchess of Cambridge has been admitted to King Edward VII Hospital tonight with severe morning sickness.
All across the world, screens flickered to life as one short statement from Kensington Palace sent shockwaves through every newsroom. The Princess of Wales will address the nation tomorrow. No further details, no context, just silence and speculation. Within minutes, the internet became a storm. Some whispered of a royal scandal about to erupt, others feared for her health, and a few, those who knew the tone of palace announcements too well, feared something even deeper, something irreversible. Outside the walls of Adelaide Cottage, reporters gathered like moths to a flame, their lenses aimed at windows that stayed closed all night. Inside, behind those pale curtains, the future queen sat alone, a letter in her hand, a trembling breath, her wedding ring turning slowly beneath her thumb. And as the candle beside her flickered against the rain-specked glass, she whispered to herself, not as a royal, not as a public figure, but as a woman preparing for something the world could never imagine. Tomorrow, she would not speak as the crown's voice. Tomorrow, the crown would stay silent, and a mother, just a mother, would finally speak. For months, the Princess of Wales had lived beneath a crown of whispers. Each public appearance, each wave, each smile was studied, slowed down, and dissected frame by frame. Was she expecting again? Was she ill? Had something gone wrong behind those palace walls? The world that once adored her grace now seemed consumed by curiosity, forgetting that behind those poised gestures lived a woman quietly enduring the weight of every rumor. Kate had always carried her role with gentleness. She was the steady calm beside a future king, the mother who somehow made royalty feel reachable. But lately, something had changed. Her public schedule grew thin, her laughter more fragile. When she disappeared from view entirely, the silence that followed became its own kind of noise. You see, sometimes silence speaks louder than any royal statement. The tabloids built their own storylines. Some claimed the palace was hiding joy, a secret pregnancy. Others spun tales of conflict, of tension, of an impossible choice between duty and family. Yet inside Kensington Palace, the truth was far from those glossy headlines. It was quieter, heavier, more human. For weeks, the palace press office refused to comment, allowing speculation to burn itself out. But it never did. Instead, it grew until it surrounded her like fog. Every photo, every movement, analyzed and magnified by a world hungry for answers. And then, just when the noise seemed unbearable, the palace released one short, cryptic message. The Princess of Wales will address the nation tomorrow. In that moment, the country held its breath, because this was not the language of ceremony or celebration. It was the language of something personal, something grave. When Kate finally stepped forward to speak, her truth was not what the headlines had promised. It wasn't about scandal or secrecy. It was about something far more fragile, far more powerful, something no one expected.
It began quietly, months before the world even noticed her absence. Behind palace gates and guarded smiles, Kate faced something she had never shared with the public. Another pregnancy, one that came with more pain than joy. The familiar signs of hyperemesis returned, those relentless waves of nausea that had once driven her to hospital beds during her earlier pregnancies. But this time it was different. This time she hid it from everyone except her closest circle. She carried both life and heartbreak in silence. While the cameras speculated about her vanishing act, Kate was fighting through days when even standing took courage. And late nights at Adelaide Cottage, William sat beside her, his hand over hers, their unspoken fears filling the quiet rooms that once echoed with children's laughter. And then, sometime in February, away from the public eye, the Princess of Wales gave birth to a daughter. They named her Grace Elizabeth, a name chosen not for grandeur, but for meaning. Grace for the miracle she was, Elizabeth for the legacy she came from. For a brief moment, the world inside that small nursery glowed with the softest kind of joy, the joy that comes from a love too deep to describe. But it was fragile. The doctors whispered words no parent ever wants to hear. Grace's condition was rare, uncertain, and bound by time. Each hour became a blessing, each breath a prayer. Kate, ever the mother before the monarch, made a choice. She would protect her daughter not just from the cameras, but from the world itself. There would be no photographs, no announcements, no public moments of sympathy. Grace's life, however short, would remain untouched by the frenzy that often consumed royal truth. In that quiet, Kate lived two lives at once, the woman grieving in private and the princess smiling for the world. Every public silence was a shield, every unseen tear a promise kept. Because while the nation waited for a statement, Kate's heart was speaking a language far too tender for words, a language only a mother could understand.
The gala was everything the royal calendar promised. Golden lights, polished marble floors, and 1,000 eyes waiting for the Princess of Wales to appear. The orchestra played softly as photographers lined the entrance, their cameras humming like restless bees. And then she arrived, graceful, radiant, composed, every inch the royal ideal. The crowd saw perfection. What they didn't see was the storm beneath it. Her gown shimmered under the chandeliers, but her eyes, those kind eyes, carried something the cameras couldn't capture. A shadow, a story, a memory she could never share. She smiled, she curtsied, she waved, every gesture rehearsed, every breath measured. Yet somewhere behind the poise, her heart ached for the tiny hand she would never hold again. William stood beside her, the practiced calm of a future king masking the quiet tremor of a grieving father. They didn't need words. Their eyes met across the crowded ballroom, and in that one glance, 1,000 unspoken truths passed between them. They had buried their sorrow beneath duty, built a wall of composure so high that even those closest to them could not climb it. As champagne glasses clinked and laughter rose around them, the world celebrated the fairy tale image, the perfect couple, the flawless family, the shining heirs to a throne of tradition. But beneath the surface, their hearts beat to a rhythm of loss. The music swelled, and for a moment, Kate's gaze drifted past the royal portraits, past the glittering chandeliers, to the emptiness that followed her everywhere. You see, even surrounded by hundreds, she had never felt more alone. Later that night, as she stepped out into the palace courtyard, the air cold and still, something in her finally gave way. The mask she had worn for months began to crack. She pressed a hand to her chest, the faint echo of a lullaby still lingering in her mind, the one she had hummed to Grace in those final nights. William found her there, standing beneath the soft glow of the lamps, tears shimmering but never falling. He didn't speak. He didn't need to, because love in their world had become something silent, something hidden. The photographers caught nothing of that moment. The newspapers the next day wrote of elegance, of poise, of the princess's, quote, glowing return. But within the palace walls, those who saw her knew the truth. Her glow was not from happiness, it was from holding herself together when she was breaking inside. That night, something shifted in the royal heart of Britain. The perfect image began to tremble ever so slightly, and though no one could name it, the nation would soon feel it, a subtle, silent change carried in the face of the woman who had long been their symbol of strength.
It happened without warning. One morning, the palace gates remained closed, her car unspotted, her presence unmentioned. The Princess of Wales, so often the steady center of royal life, was simply gone. No appearances, no statements, no trace. And in a heartbeat, the calm of Windsor turned into chaos. The media erupted. Headlines screamed of disappearance, breakdown, betrayal. News anchors spoke with trembling voices about a royal mystery unlike any in modern times. Social media turned frantic, some blaming the palace for secrecy, others spinning tales of illness, escape, or even abdication. And through it all, the palace maintained its deadly quiet. No confirmations, no denials, only silence, the kind that breeds fear. Outside Adelaide Cottage, reporters gathered under gray skies, their lenses fixed on the stillness of its curtained windows. Days passed, no movement, no flicker of light. Staff whispered as they came and went, careful not to be overheard. Inside those walls, time seemed to stop. Portraits gazing down from centuries past. Toys left scattered across the nursery floor. A single baby blanket folded neatly on a chair. Someone, one night, claimed they heard her voice, softly, faintly, murmuring a name through the open window. Grace. Just that one word, nothing more. The silence became symbolic. Royal duty turned into private mourning. The nation watched, waiting for an explanation, while behind the palace facade, a woman was facing something the monarchy could never script or manage: grief that demanded to be felt. You see, the crown could command ceremonies and speeches, but it could not command healing. In those missing days, Kate vanished, not from the world, but from its noise. She retreated into something beyond cameras and crowns, somewhere quiet, somewhere only a mother could go when love and loss blur into one. And when the palace finally spoke, when they confirmed she was safe, resting, and recovering in private, the public sighed with relief, though few truly understood. She hadn't disappeared out of weakness. She had stepped away out of strength. Because sometimes healing looks like vanishing. And sometimes she wasn't missing at all. She was healing.
The letter arrived quietly, slipped through the palace mail one early morning. No crest, no seal, only her handwriting, steady, calm, and unmistakably hers. William was the first to open it, his hand trembling as his eyes traced the words that began, "The world believes I've vanished. In some ways, they're right, but here I've found peace." It wasn't a royal statement. It wasn't crafted by advisors or approved by the press office. It was something far simpler and far braver, a confession written by a woman who had spent too long being everything to everyone. In the letter, she spoke not of titles or duties, but of grace. Not as a secret buried in sorrow, but as something reborn. Grace, she wrote, was never just a name. She was a lesson, a quiet reminder that even in loss, there can be life again. Each line carried the weight of rediscovery. Kate spoke of finding stillness beyond the noise, of learning to breathe without performance, to exist without expectation. For the first time in years, she was no longer the Princess of Wales. She was simply Kate, a mother, a wife, a woman who had walked through grief and found something luminous on the other side. And as her words spread softly through the corridors of Kensington Palace, they brought a strange kind of release. The silence that once felt suffocating now became sacred, a space where truth could finally live. Because in the end, her story wasn't about disappearance. It was about return, not to the world, but to herself.
In the end, what remained was not the image of a perfect princess, but the portrait of a woman who had quietly rewritten what strength truly means. Royalty didn't define her. Love did. Through the pain she never spoke of and the silence she endured, Kate revealed a truth deeper than any royal decree, that behind every crown beats a human heart, fragile yet unbreakable. Her story became more than a royal confession. It became a reflection of every mother who has ever carried loss behind her smile, who has ever rebuilt herself in the quiet corners of grief. The world had seen her as a symbol of elegance, but now she was something far rarer, real. Grace Elizabeth, though gone, had given the monarchy something unseen, a whisper of renewal. Grace had become more than a name. She was now a living metaphor for the future itself, where compassion might stand beside duty and where the heart could guide the crown. And as Britain looked upon their princess once more, it wasn't the jewels or titles that defined her, but the courage to be human in a world that demanded perfection. Perhaps the question now isn't whether the Princess of Wales will give Britain another heir. Perhaps the real question is, has she already given the nation something far greater? A glimpse of grace itself.